translate into exemplary manner his fundamental values.
Capability of mobilizing citizens, his dynamism in politics, his words, his speeches, and the results also permitted him to win this prize.
Appreciating the men and women who, through their commitment and integrity to building a strong, just, and united Cameroon,
able to move all around Libya and do more campaign for the president. And we did our best, and the president won with 90-something%. We gave him that victory.
Collective of investigative journalists' vision goes beyond providing information to recognition and value to those whose actions embody Republican ideas such as probity, loyalty, a sense of duty, and defense of common goal.
The destiny of the PADEC is linked to the destiny of the President Pobia. We take this opportunity to pass a word. Let the people know what you are doing. Because during this electoral campaign, we noticed that the population was claiming for a lot of things that the answer is there. The response is already there. And the response, the answer, they are not known by the population.
To the PADEC party scribe, there is a lot of information gap, and this should be clarified by civil servants, explaining to the people what is going on, recent developments, programs, and realities in the country. And this is an ideal opportunity to do more of this.
Thanks very much, Patrice Nkamo. Amid rising socio-political tensions across the country and disruptions linked to post-electoral ghost towns, the senior divisional officer for the Upper Camp, Dschang Lawrence, is stepping up efforts to make sure he restores normalcy. He had a meeting with stakeholders in that part of the country, as we hear from you, Morindi.
The situation on the ground is evident in the city of Bafang and several other localities in Onkam Division. Most markets remain closed since the ghost town call on Monday. This Wednesday, many schools are still struggling to receive students, and public offices are operating in a slow pace. In response, the SDO convened an emergency meeting bringing together social, administrative, and educational stakeholders across Onkam. The aim was to develop urgent strategies to facilitate a swift return to normalcy.
Il y a de cela quelques jours, certains acteurs de réseaux sociaux ont lancé les villes mortes.
The education sector is particularly alarming, with widespread absenteeism of students in schools across Bafang, Banka and Banja.
Déjà dans les arrondissements de Bafang et de Banka, il n'y a pas eu de reprise de cours, malgré le fait que, malgré la présence du personnel administratif et enseignant dans les différentes structures.
Ezio Dschang Lawrence announced he will carry out unannounced visits to public offices to ensure continuity of state services and compliance with official working hours.
Certains services publics sont fermés et il a fallu que nous tenions cette réunion pour sensibiliser nos populations de ne pas adhérer à ce ville mode, de continuer à vaquer à leurs préoccupations.
During this high-stakes coordination meeting, key resolutions were adopted to reassure the population and restore proper functioning of institutions in Onkam, urging for collective mobilization towards calm and stability.
Thanks, Maureen. And over to the Northwest region, a 3-month campaign to promote ethical governance in municipal councils across the Northwest region has actually recorded remarkable success. As we are gathering, the Northwest Public Independent Conciliator has remarked that there have been less complaints on bad governance. Northwest Chief Correspondent Anya Collins files in with Sheriff Saleh.
Begun on August 1, the 3-month campaign for good governance in regional and local councils in the Northwest region has officially closed. Initiated by the Office of the Public Independent Conciliator, the exercise was aimed at upholding the tenets of rendering good services to the public, like to those with special needs.
We are sure, as persons with disabilities who are the electorate, to sanction any councillor, to sanction any mayor who defaults and who exploits and who is corrupt.
There are certain things that the next of kin. At least traditionally, you can be a next of kin without any death certificate. So that was not what I was expecting from the PIC.
Closing the campaign on November 4, 2025 in Bamenda, the Public Independent Conciliator in an exchange with the press revealed that the number of complaints from the public has dwindled, proof that much ground has been covered.
The population is aware of good governance, the mayors are aware of good governance, and everybody is trying to behave right. That's why we have less complaints at the level of the Office of the Public Independent Council.
Though officially closed, the PIC is still keeping an eye on council activities through community-based assistance, as that is just its regalian duty for the common man to enjoy the full rights of local services as laid down by the law.
And the editor-in-chief of Amplitude FM has testified before the military court in Yaoundé on the assassination of Martinez Zogo. The hearing actually focused on two issues: the authentication of the voice recording that was retrieved from the radio station and the government commissioner's request for the
major moments of the November 4 hearing on the Martinez Zogo case at the military tribunal in Yaoundé are twofold. It started around two requests that sparked heated controversy. On the one hand, the government commissioner requested that the hearing be postponed in order to authenticate the recordings of the radio programs extracted during the judicial investigation. On the other hand, there was a request made the previous day by Barrister Al-Sira concerning the extension of the period during which the broadcast was analyzed. After long and heated debates, the court decided to defer both requests.
Je pars également de l'idée que la vérité n'est jamais bonne, elle n'est jamais une vérité complète quand elle n'est qu'une demi-vérité.
Truth is never good, never complete, if it is half-truth of the truth. Martinez Zogo's colleague, the editor-in-chief of Amplitude FM, first questioned by the government individuals who have been publicly accused by the victim. The presenter scheduled that Martinez Zogo was facing numerous complaints, about 100. The hearing for the continuation of debates and hearing assassinate last January 2023.
And what swallowed vehicles and bodies, as 15 News is revisiting the Dschang.
1 year ago, families were in tears and their pain continues. From November 5, 2024 to November 5, 2026 marks exactly 1 year since the deadly landslide that struck La Falaise de Dschang in Cameroon along the Many more remains buried on the ground to this day. The victims included travelers and 3 bulldozer operators who were clearing the debris from an earlier smaller landslide had occurred the same morning. Several vehicles were also swallowed by the earth. The major cause, torrential rains, has saturated the soil, destabilizing the steep slope. The government made strong promises to rebuild the damaged roads and restore safety in the area. But 1 year later, not much has changed. Construction work has been slow, with reports indicating that only about 10% of the work has been done. Even alternative routes and deviation sites remain poorly rehabilitated, further prolonging the suffering of the local population. On the tragic day, many families stood at the scene, praying for their loved ones' bodies would be recovered. For many, those hopes were dashed. The site, for some, has become a symbolic mass grave. And as November 5 returns, so do their painful memories. Unanswered questions continue to linger. Did victims and their families receive any psychological support? Were trauma healing mechanisms put in place? Were promises made just to calm the public? These remain millions. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching part is this: nothing significant has changed at the site despite all the promises. For the affected families, the cliff no longer just symbolizes a geographical feature, it is now a monument of grief.
Commodities across of goods and services. And he takes a look on the prices of beef.
Beef sold at 2,600 francs per kilogram less than 2 weeks ago has increased in a geometric rate.
Avec hausse, c'est 4,500 kilos, soit même 103 kilos. Donc le problème est que maintenant nous on est bloqué.
A hard moment for food and soya vendors.
C'est parti à 1000 francs. C'était avant c'est 500 avant le pain mais maintenant là c'est 1000 francs.
And at the cattle market here at Abattoir Yaoundé, the scarcity is visible. It is not saturated with the domestic animal as usual. A difficult period for the sub-regional traders, feeling the consequences of the post-electoral crisis.
The situation that we have today concerning the beef countries is due to the political or electoral crisis that we have today in the country. That I can say that the reality that the transport is not more on their movement.
And while they manage to satisfy the demands of the Yaoundé city dwellers, who consume approximately 750 cows a day, the cattle traders decry the fact that Cameroon is still relying on neighboring countries for beef.
Yes, it's true that we have about 90 to 95% that coming from Chad and other countries, near bordering countries. The government that to try to make dialogue so that to arrange this political crisis or this electoral crisis that harm the country.
And aside the current violence, roadblocks and ghost towns, they also underline the long-lasting cases of insecurity that has been plaguing the rearers in the 3 northern regions, pushing some to completely abandon production.
And as economic pressure mounts and ghost towns persist across some of the towns in the country, food is fast becoming a luxury to many people who can actually afford a square meal. Sherifa Saleh takes a look at the basic commodities like vegetables in our local markets in Douala.
Neatly installed on market shelves, fish of all types looks attractive, but the price frightens customers, especially during these periods of announced ghost towns. Housewives say fish is now a luxury to feed a family of 4 or more with a balanced fish meal. One needs between 7,000 to 18,000 francs CFA, depending on the type.
Les prix du poisson est à partir de 22 000.
The prices for fish now start from 6,500 to 22,000 francs. I sell all kinds of fish and prices vary. 15,000, 11,000, 6,500 francs, depending on the size. It's a clear shortage and ghost towns have made it worse. The trend is the same for other food items. This Wednesday at Sanaga Market, Douala Central Market and New Dedo Market, housewives were spotted touching products, checking prices and walking away. Many blamed the announced ghost towns and blocked borders for disrupting supply and causing price surges. 3 onions for 2,000 francs is too much. Same with green spices, 2 for 1,000 francs. And yet, if you don't want, they tell you to just go.
Voilà l'huile, 2,000 francs.
This oil used to sell at 1,500 francs. Today is 2,000 francs. A carton of vanilla milk is now 35,000 francs, up from 25,000 francs. Fish that used to sold at 2,000 francs, now, if you don't have 4,000 francs, no one can even look at you. This woman blamed what she called artificial scarcity, noting that vegetables, fruits, rice, oil, and even cassava are now becoming unaffordable.
When it comes to the market, when they heard they say people are not going to the market or market is not open, they will increase the prices. So they make the economic crisis to be more expensive.
Traders also voiced frustration sitting under the sun all day with few buyers. Some described the situation as an economic war and called on authorities to act fast. They also questioned the silence of Consumer Rights Association, asking why the burden always falls on the common man. For many, the impact of ghost towns and economic pressure remains deeply felt across markets in Cameroon's economic hub, Douala.
And Maureen D signing out for this news edition, in which we got information that President Paul Biya will be taking the oath of office for the next 7-year mandate. And of course, Dschang, landslide is 1 year and the families are still aggrieved as that hecatomb lingers over. Matthew Fango will be coming up in a split second with the debrief, the actuality. From all of us, it's goodbye.
Sociopolitical.